G'day and welcome to another preview on My Blue Heaven. I'm here to take a look at the game against the Sydney Swans tomorrow night at the SCG. This will be the second Friday night that we've had. We had one against the Brisbane Lions not that long ago, and just another wonderful opportunity to showcase our irresistible style of football to the wider football community on the biggest night of the week, and that is Friday night football. So can't wait for this one. And geez, both sides are poo at the moment. We're poo and the Swans are poo. They are actually coming off an extraordinarily poor win against the North Melbourne Football Club last week. I watched that game and weren't they fucking lucky? Absolutely lucky. I must admit, I've never seen Buddy Franklin so animated after a game than that game against, other than the time where he kicked 1,000 goals, he was very, very animated that night against the Cats last year. But this win, he hunted down, I'm not quite sure who the boundary rider was that he hunted down after the game, but he rarely interviews. They have to try and find him, but he was more than happy to chat about what an important win that was for the Sydney Swans, and he was up and about, almost like this will be his last season in the AFL, and he is desperate. He is desperate to get the Swannies to another final series, and who knows if they can get some players back over the course of the second half of the year that they could potentially be a contender again, because they were last year. So the big buddy was up and about after the Swans' very, very narrow 3-point win and a lucky one against North Melbourne. He kicked 90 points against the Swannies last week. And they are going like busted arseholes themselves, North Melbourne. And they've been struggling. Only the 4 wins. Got beaten at home against Fremantle. That was a fortnight ago. And they weren't disgraced against the Pies at the MCG. I wouldn't say they were terrific in that game, but it wasn't, I would say, a poor performance. GWS beat them in a really close game at the SCG, and we remember back to that game against the Cats at GMHBA Stadium, and that was probably the real start of their dip. But they got on the winners board last week, and we know our form, particularly against the better sides, and it hasn't been good. And it's been another really, really interesting week for the Carlton Football Club ahead of this game, and I just can't seem to work out what the messaging is. One week it's just taking the gloss of what the expectations were at the start of the year, which was to play finals football, and then we had Cook and Cherry coming out saying it wouldn't be a failure. Next minute, we've got Michael Voss being a lot more forthright in his press conference after the game last week against the Pies. And then the Prez jumps on, and he says expectations is finals, but we are backing the coach, we are backing the coach. So I'm not quite sure what the real messaging is at this football club at the moment. It almost feels like they want to have, want to have a little bit in each, a hand in each basket, so to speak. Like if we don't make it, it's not the end of the world, but we really want to get there. But it won't really matter because Voss will still be our coach next year. So it's just, I don't know. But I'm thinking this game, guys, we're 11th on the ladder and we are slipping. We are slipping away. And it won't be long if we continue to lose games at the rate we're losing them. And this one when you look at the Sydney Swans injury list, Carlton's are out, Rampy, Mills, Hickey probably won't play. Laddams definitely won't play. McDonald, Sam Reid, the list goes on. I mean, they are just being decimated with some significant key personnel out of their football team. But they wouldn't be necessarily using that as an excuse. The big horse. I reckon Horse will have them fired up for this one on their home turf. And isn't that an awful place to go and watch a game of football? I went there a few years back to watch Carlton play on a Friday night against the Swans. I hate that joint, and I dislike their supporters with a passion. Yeah, it's almost like when you sit there at the SCG, their supporters actually don't watch the game. They just sort of sit there and chat. It's almost like watching, I don't know, some croquet or some polo or some sort of game like that. You know, sipping a champagne and just watching from afar. They're quite an unusual lot there in Sydney. But yeah, we are slipping away, and the thing that makes this game so fascinating for me is one, it's on a Friday night, so everyone's going to be watching this, regardless of how good a game it is. People will be looking at this and going, oh, fuck, how boring is this going to be? Carlton v Sydney. Christ, Carlton are the most boring team in the competition. Who can blame the neutrals for thinking that? Because we are. We are. So if I jump out of my Carlton skin for a second, I'd be looking at this going, oh, this could be potentially half-time on the couch at home, sort of waking up, around about 12:30, some dribble just sort of coming down, going, where the fuck am I? Like that's the type of thing if you don't follow either of these teams and you're at home watching it on the couch. However, as much as this is an extremely boring game on paper, the neutrals be praying. They'll be rooting for the Sydney Swans. They will be absolutely rooting for the Sydney Swans and to witness our demise on a Friday night and just listen to us supporters go off our nuts. Oh, because if this was one of the big clubs like Essendon or Richmond or Collingwood in a similar position to us, where we've been for the last 20 odd years, a game we were supposed to be coming, we were supposed to be building, and this is the year we're supposed to be going. I would be, say if it was Collingwood in the same, I would be praying for a Sydney Swans victory, because even though the game wouldn't be good as such, I'd just stay up and I'd be like, fuck, this is great. And this is what football's about, guys, okay? So this is what happens. This is what happens to us. But I don't trust us to get the job done here, even against not an ordinary Sydney Swans team, because it's still got some really good talent. Really good talent. And we're at full strength nearly. Like, we've been whinging and whining and carrying on like pork chops for such a long time now about our list, but we are like right in the sweet spot in regards to the health of our list. And we go there this weekend against a team which is out of form, so just struggling to get players on the park and filling in holes. And we, oh, wow. The prospect of losing this game against the Sydney Swans, but all those other factors coming into play, our record there isn't great. Our record when we're under the pump isn't great. Our record when our back's against the wall isn't great. Our record against teams like Sydney Swans, who when their back's against the wall, we know We can trust that they will find something. And there will be, apart from the usuals. Can't wait to see who we bring in. I really can't. There needs to be changes. There needs to be multiple changes to our football team. There really does. We looked as slow as a fucking wet week against the Pies. We need to bring some speed into this team. Some speed and some energy. So if that's Paddy Dow, if that's Jackson Binns, or whatever his name is, and we can get some speed in, or we bring a Fogarty in just to give him some energy, okay, we just need to do it. Sydney Swans team has got some swagger. And when teams have got some swagger, they can cause us some problems. And guys that have been in, let's say, ordinary form for Sydney Swans, I wouldn't say ordinary, but yeah, just going. I talk about Isaac Heaney. Heaney tomorrow night. Look out Will Hayward tomorrow night. Look out Tom Papley tomorrow night. And look out Lance Franklin tomorrow night. None of these guys are particularly setting the world on fire, but they've all got a bit about them. They rate themselves, but not only do they rate themselves, they love that ground. And they'll love playing against us. They've played well against us in the past. I'd hate to actually be paying on Buddy this week after watching him in that interview. And I know he's just about cooked, but there's something about him. And even if he kicks 2 or 3, that's enough. That's enough just to cause some genuine damage. So there's some significant problems given the way our defence is sort of tracking at the moment. And they've got Reid out and they've got McDonald out. But, yeah, Hayden McLean might be an Aldi version of Logan McDonald. But, yeah, he can take a grab. And Ryan Clark has been named on a half-forward flank. He's an interesting player. He's the former North player, isn't he? Ryan Clark. Now, he's generally a run-with type. And who would he run with at the moment? If he's going to go to one of our midfielders, would it be Cripper? Would it be Walsh? Or would it be Chera? Yeah, I feel like he will go to one of those. The interesting one is if he does go to Cripper, remember his brother Dylan Clark that played at Essendon, his younger brother. He was a real battler, but he came in for about half a dozen games as a lockdown tagger. And I remember he did an unbelievable job on Patrick Cripps in a game at the MCG just before Brendan Bolton got the arse. He kept him to about 11 touches, just completely blanketed him. So maybe Ryan gets some tips off his younger brother Dylan on how to play on Patrick Cripps. But that will be an interesting one. They've still got, they're missing Callum Mills, but Luke Parker, if you're talking about a bloke that's been in terrific form, it's Luke Parker. He had a really good game last week. He's as hard as a duck's beak. He'll be determined. Chad Warner, dangerous. And we know, look, this mob made fools of us, really, in a pre-season game over there. You know, Errol Goulden ran around like his shit didn't stink and just picked the ball up at will. And what this team have got, and this is an SCG factor, left footers galore that can fucking hurt you. Braden Campbell, Dylan Stevens, Nick Blakey, Errol Gilden, they're all left footers and they're all damaging by foot. They just will slice us open if we turn that ball over. Not quite sure what they're going to do in the ruck, whether Big Tom Hickey comes back in, because Lachlan McAndrew, who played his first game last week, he's a real beanpole. He did okay, but he's one of the tallest things I've seen. So Whether they play two rucks, I don't think they will if Hickey comes back in. But they've got a plethora of blokes that can roll through their midfield. Florence, another one. I mean, Harry Cunningham is having a decent year across halfback. Jake Lloyd as well. Robbie Fox can play a role. And Aaron Francis, the bomber, has been brought in as that tall. I've got a feeling they might bring Lewis Malikin in as a bit of a backup in their defensive half. So don't underestimate this Sydney Swans team, but really, given their outs, we should not, under any circumstances, be losing this game of football. And if we do, it should hit the fan.